This fly is called the burnt tail yellow belly. In the video I made on how to tie it, I kept calling it my YCT, which is my yellow coppertail, which is slightly different. The yellow coppertail pattern has a little bit of red in it, and it's a little bit more of a bushy leech. And that's the yellow coppertail right there. And it has a little bit of olive hackle in there with the tail instead of marabou. So you can see yellow coppertail versus burnt tail yellow belly. They're just slightly different, both super effective patterns, but the one that we're showing you how to tie in the video is the one with the bead head, and of course you can just leave the bead head out to get more of the natural effect. This pattern is called the yellow coppertail. I tie it in a few different variations and colors, but it's basically just a mohair leech with a burnt tail. This fly can be tied with a bead. I've got these MFC tungsten 20 piece in a 5/32, and then I've also got this streamer hook right here in a size 12. But the one that I showed you is tied in a little bit different of a size without the bead. So the bead's for more like a balanced fly or a semi-balanced fly, and without the bead is to fish on intermediate with more action. As shown without the bead, this fly is tied with the Daiichi 2220. We're going to do one with the bead, and the color is 139 in Hello Hobby Walmart brand thread. And $3 you get 500 yards of this stuff, and it's just got just the right color. Get that hook all dressed up. Trim it. Up here by the head, we're going to make a little bit of a thread dam, just so that bead will quit sliding. You'll see there's no name on this package. This is burnt orange from Denny Rickards at Fly Fish Stillwater. Pretty hard to get that exact shade. I've bought a few different brands and types, and I would go there to get this exact orange. When you pull the feathers out, if they're a little bit kind of just fluffier than you want, you can take one of these brushes and just pull some of the fibers through it. You'll see it'll start to straighten them out and get rid of the stuff that you don't want. I like to comb some of these fibers out. After a good vigorous brush, we're going to pull some of these marabou feather pieces out here. We don't need a lot for the tail, probably about that much, and that actually might be a little too much. I may end up going with half of that. Next is to kind of work that feather into a twist, and then we'll put it on the hook. You can see I'm about 1.5 times the hook length. Just going to keep tying this in, just getting a couple of wraps around it. And on that side, and then we'll go ahead and cut that off. Just wrap this nice and tight and get it clean, get that tail area down nice and tight like that. I want to put a little bit of crystal flash copper in the tail. I like to do that. I've got a little cut in the package, and I just pull out one strand right there, and then we'll just cut that. I folded it in half, and I started a little loop there just so I can kind of pull that around the thread piece and get those attached. You'll see they'll kind of lay down. And I'm going to cut the next two pieces there. Just cut these a little slightly longer than the tail. We'll come back up and we'll lay those ones in as well and get them wrapped up and into that tail. Okay. The next step is to use some of this Semper Fly. We're going to make a dubbing loop. I'm also going to let my thread bobbin spin out from some of those extra wraps on the tail. I've cut off about an 8 to 10 inch piece of that copper. You can do a lot with it. You can either lay it on the back, or you can stick it in the extra area on the BB. But what's most important is that you get it laid down nice and flat, and work it back up to the tail. And then we're going to take this, and I'm going to put 2 fingers around it and pull it down till I'm approximately 3 inches. And then we're going to take this little excess wire and just wrap it up on that body. You can cut it if you don't want to take the time to wrap it all the way around. Less is more on this fly. We're going to get a few wraps up around here. And you'll notice I'm going to bring that dubbing loop back till both those pieces of wire are kind of together like that. And then at this point, we're going to take our thread and send it all the way back up by the head. And we're going to let it dangle. And I've got this little thread bobbin piece holder here. I'm going to set it out here in front of the fly. So if you look, it's out here on the front. Okay, see if I can get my focus back here again. Whoop, there we go. And now that I have my dubbing loop sitting there, I've got this Umpqua dubbing loop spinner, and we're just going to hang it inside of that dubbing loop and just let it kind of relax there for a minute. And we're going to use some of this stuff here. Utah Spec Gold, Troutsman Enterprises. I've been making a color like this with a little bit more red in it. This stuff's pretty good for what we want it to do. And then we're just going to fill out that dubbing loop. And just kind of remember that less is more on this fly. You can kind of add some back in here and there as needed. But what's most important is to try to get those fibers kind of cross-fed up into that loop. And then what we're going to do is start spinning that little weighted dubbing loop thing. I don't know what they're actually called. I should know. But it'll start to look like this, and that means it's doing okay, but it's a little bit thick. You can kind of see the fibers, and I don't like them when they go in here. I don't want them to be clumpy at all. I want to be able to see that wire while I'm wrapping it. So I'll kind of come up and down here, and anywhere that it's really extra thick, I'm actually just pulling some out. It's hard to see that here. See if I can zoom out just a little bit, and you can see I'm just trying to pull some of it out, and you can trim some of it. You can twist it in a little more. Now the wire could break. The thing that's nice about using the wire is that if the fish bite, basically this golden mohair we're building, they bite into it, they're not going to just rip the whole fly into shreds and pieces. And so that's kind of what it should look like right there. Okay, let's zoom back in. Now the nice thing, the reason the thread's coming out on the tip there, and that's so that I can do this. I want to be able to kind of wrap it with the rotary portion of the vise, and this helps a ton. So as we're wrapping, we'll kind of keep pulling that mohair back. I call it mohair, but really it's just dubbing, but it's no different than a big mohair wrap, honestly. We just want to kind of keep it. If a little bit of that maroon is able to shine through with some of that copper on there, that's great. But you want to kind of build the fly right now as you're building, so what you see right now is going to be kind of what you get. So you kind of got to pay close attention to how you build this out and how thick you want the body. This particular fly, I think less is more. Okay, so I think that's important, but you still want to have enough mohair that it will kind of come up and can kind of pull back. And if you're not getting that, you can always come back in here and just twist a little bit in under your windings and your wraps. It's not a big deal. It'll just kind of pull and work itself out. But we're just going to keep building that up until we get up by the head. I think one of the mistakes I make is I leave my heads a little thin. I don't know if it matters that much. but it is nice to have it kind of full right back behind the head where these beads have a little bit of a pocket. So we'll take it up to about right there, and then from there we're just gonna wrap this thread on there, and then we'll whip finish it. So we'll come in front of that wire. Let's make sure we get back behind it. Yep. And then we'll run the whip finish tool on it, and we'll have us a nice little I call it the YCT, the little yellow copper tail. I like these kind of yellow bodied leeches. I think they just get a lot of attention. They get mistook for minnows, damsels, leeches, all kinds of other bugs in the water. But they do really well. I haven't fished this hothead, so that's new for me, but the other pattern I showed you, we've had plenty of 20 fish days on this pattern. Thanks for watching.